Hi guys, hope you're all doing well. Thank you very much for joining me on Coastal Catch Ups. Um, Today or this evening, I'm in my apartment and I am chatting to Paul Stewart, who is the centre manager of Castle Espie. Castle Espie is a site of the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust, the only site in Northern Ireland, and their role is to conserve wetlands and protect them. And as Paul mentions in our chat, to actually inspire the next generation of future environmentalists, conservationists, natural scientists, you name it. So I am excited for you to hear the chat, and I hope you enjoy. Some of the things we talk about, we cover nature's role in helping the mental health crisis with an increasingly urbanized world, where people go to get a bit of respite and switch off. We also talk about all the activities ongoing at Castle Espie to fulfil their mission to inspire the future generation. So there's loads going on, which you can hear Paul talk about. So yeah, I hope you enjoy, and I'll catch you soon.
It's all about Marie and the coastal sea, aquatic life and everything in between. So sit on down and take a seat. Coastal catch-ups with the stampede.
Paul, thank you very much for coming on the Coastal Catch Ups. I'll let you explain your background and what you're doing now, but I just want to say I'm very excited to have you on. And if you wouldn't mind, just to start off, could you tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and what you're up to now?
Sure. Thanks for asking me, Sam. Interesting project you're doing. My background originally it was horticulture. So I studied gardening and I worked in Belfast City Council for 20 years, including Botanic Gardens, Ormeau Park, different places. But the work I was doing there, it began to diversify a bit in the 90s, into sort of more managing for nature conservation. So flower meadows and parks and planting up forested Belfast, stuff like that. I worked in Lagan Meadows Nature Reserve for a while, so it drifted more into that. And then I left the council. I was with the National Trust for 13 years, and I'd done a bit of both formal horticulture and managing for biodiversity in Castle Ward and other places. And then in 2019, I came to Castle Espie, the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust at Castle Espie. So that's my journey, condensed version to how I got here. I arrived here just in time for lockdown, actually, because I was here 6 months and we went into lockdown. But and that was an experience in itself because we were here, we still had to run the centre, we had all the infrastructure to look after in the building. So there were still some people here, and I was lucky enough to not be furloughed and to be kept on doing that. And really, the peace of this place, it's unbelievable. I used to go out for walks, and we had black-headed gulls that were nesting everywhere because there was no people about. So they were nesting on the roof. They were chasing you away when you went out onto the reserve because they'd reclaimed it totally for themselves. I went out into our apple orchard here, which we maintain also as wildflower meadow, and clouds of butterflies just coming off it. I think it was one thing that came out of lockdown. I think a lot of people noticed nature more, and how important it is. So that's my journey and how I got here.
Very good. That's a good point actually about Castle Espie. Uh, I'll get you to explain a bit about Castle Espie, but just before that, yeah, the show had to go on at Castle Espie to manage the site. And it's interesting you saying about the lack of humans walking about the site, how the changes came about.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind, Paul, so you're now at Castle Espie managing the site. For anyone who doesn't know where that is or the type of site it is, could you give them a brief flavour of what's going on there?
Sure. We're situated on the north end of Strangford Lough, and we're managed by the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust, and it's a global wetlands charity. So we operate all around the world. We have 10 wetland centres in the UK, but we have projects in Africa, Asia, and elsewhere looking after wetlands and important migratory flyways. So this Castle Espie is the only nature reserve we have in Northern Ireland. And if you're going to have it in one place, you'd have a wetland reserve on Strangford Lough. Strangford Lough has all the designations, as you know. It's a Ramsar site, a nature reserve, special scientific interest, and so on. So that's the ideal place to have one. And how we actually got here originally, the WWT took over the managing of this site in 1989. It was started by the Mackey family originally, well known in Belfast, of course, for Mackey's engineering. And they were friends of Peter Scott. Peter Scott formed the Wetlands Trust, Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust, in the 1940s. The Mackeys started this, and after about 10 years, they handed over to their friend Peter and his charity. And that's how we got to be here. An interesting thing about Peter Scott as well, he's actually the son of Captain Scott of the Antarctic. And when Captain Scott was in the Antarctic and he knew he wasn't going to make it, he wrote a long letter back to his wife. And one of the things he said in is, make sure you bring up the boy interested in nature. And sure, he went on to found a conservation charity. So that's a bit about the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust. So yeah, we have a nature reserve here on the north end of the loch. And as well as looking after the natural habitat, we also have a collection of birds which we breed from. And some of these are rare and endangered. So there's serious conservation work going on even in the collection area.
And Strangford Lough, like you say, it has all the designations. I remember couple of weeks ago, I was writing an article and I was comparing, in this case, it was marine conservation zones, and I was looking at habitats, and then it came to Strangford Lough, and I had one paragraph for Strangford Lough, and I was like, that's not going to cut it. So yeah, 100%, there's a lot going on there. But in terms of the wetlands and the wildfowl, the bird species coming into Strangford, what is of particular interest? Is there any species that stand out to you?
Well, the Brent geese is the big one. They light-bellied Brent geese come from Canada every year to Strangford Lough. So that's 85% of planet Earth's light-bellied Brent geese coming to Northern Ireland is pretty impressive. So that's the main one. That's the signature one, and we have our Brent event or Brent Goose Festival, whatever you want to call it, every year. And this year it's in first weekend in October. So that'll be good. That's one of the unique things about Castle Espie is that they come here for the eelgrass. The reserve itself is a mosaic of wetland habitats, and with lots of different bird species there and lots of interesting flora as well. We've got seasonally flooded lagoons. We've got brackish water, salt water, freshwater lagoons, different types of habitat. So there's lots of interesting things going on, and all of the water bodies here, all of these lagoons are actually old quarries. So there was here, Castle Espie sits on a small outcrop of pink limestone, and that attracted people right from way back up. And during the Victorian era, they quarried this, and they turned the clay that capped the ground was made into bricks and pottery. We had a brickworks here, and the lime itself was quarried for building material or also crushed for agricultural lime. So you had all this heavy industry here at Castle Espie, and now nature has completely subsumed it and has become a rich patchwork of different wetland habitats. And one of the things about wetland habitats that we're learning about is that they actually store more carbon per square meter than forests do. So that's how important they are as carbon sinks.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a that the idea of blue carbon is definitely being thrown about, and it's actually nice to hear about a site in Northern Ireland that people could, if they're not sure, they could actually go and have a look, and I'm sure they could find more information out when they get to
Yeah.
Castle Espie. But you said there's a lot going on at Castle Espie between the different habitats, and I imagine there's a lot to manage, Paul. So how do you cope?
There's a lot to manage, and it's all very diverse. I mean, we've got our building to maintain, we've got our grounds to maintain, not just the reserve, the actual grounds amenity. We've got our shop and our calf. It's a great calf homebrew products in there. So you have to be sort of a jack of all trades. It's not just to run the whole show. It isn't just about knowing about one thing. You've got to spread yourself over different specialisms.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah,
Very good. And just to touch on, you mentioned about Peter Scott and his, I suppose, his legacy. I actually, when I was reading on the website, I found a quote which I actually really liked, and the idea, the quote was about sustainability, and he said, "Sooner or later, mankind will become much more widely concerned with optimum rather than maximum, quality rather than quantity." So he's I don't know. Years ago, he was already on the sustainability
yeah.
train, as it were. In terms of managing the site sustainably, um, is there any methods you use, or I suppose any challenges you come up against when you're trying to manage the site sustainably?
Yeah, one of the challenges is sometimes the cheapest way isn't the most sustainable way. We are a charity,
Hmm.
and we need to watch the pennies. But
Yeah.
even so, this organization are very, very committed to sustainability and ethical procurement.
Mhm.
Fair trade, even the coffee we sell, everything has to have good ethical credentials. But from a sustainability point of view, the building itself, it's a modern building, but it's sustainably sourced timber. It's designed in such a way to maximize light but reduce heat glare, so you don't get a greenhouse effect. We have solar power here. We've got wind power. Um, we've also installed electric car chargers just last week. So everything we do is to minimize our carbon footprint. Even the products that we sell in the shop, um, there are certain, I don't know if I can mention brand names, but there are certainly some very well known carbonated drinks that we don't sell anymore.
Okay. Don't want some big companies coming after me, Paul. Very good. And then I also was reading about the likes of, you have a new system in. I actually saw it the last time I was walking around the site for wastewater. It's a reed bed system,
That's
and
right.
there's obviously investments coming. You're implementing investments like that, which is good to see as well.
Yeah, we've got a reed bed filtration system for wastewater. So we harvest the water from the roof, and all that rainwater is used to flush the toilets, for example. So you minimize your use of mains water. And then the wastewater goes through a reed bed filtration system. All the reeds and flag irises and things that are growing in there, the micro flora and fauna in the soil, that filters out the nitrates and the poisons.
Very good. Yeah, no, it's great to see, and it's it's interesting because I know the likes of bigger water companies and stuff are implementing that practice on a larger scale, or trying to anyway, in projects. So it's a really interesting system, and how we can work with nature and the processes and try and,
Absolutely, we're going to have to.
yeah, yeah.
As civilization really depends on a stable environment,
Hmm.
and you upset that balance at your peril, really. Um, so all these things are going to become necessary
Hmm.
for society to do things sustainably.
So wetlands, Paul, we understand that they're important for blue carbon. what threats actually exist to these wetland sites? How can they, how can human activity and human development impact these sites?
The wetlands can really benefit human development in many ways. They can filter out heavy metals and all sorts of pollutants that you might get from runoff. But of course, they have a limit before you would start to poison that habitat. The main threat is probably through draining them for agricultural development. So they're worth protecting and understanding. And we have done some research and measured the amount of carbon that they can actually store, and it's quite staggering. So these are very, very useful repositories for carbon.
I like the way I asked the question about threats, and you came back saying the ecosystem services they provide, which I really appreciate and like. I like that framing that, because it's exactly right. Because it's making people aware of these habitats that they do provide a service to us. And
You know, it's some people might not like the word, maybe not particularly keen on its service. It has a, I don't know, it sounds like a sort of transactional thing, but
yeah, true.
But whatever, you know, you can approach it on different levels, and they're important for us as a species. From a very selfish point of view, if you wish, that's fine. But and they're important. They have intrinsic value of their own, and people will approach it in different ways. But either way, we need them.
So yeah, I'm trying to think of another word for service quickly, Paul, but I can't. The
ecosystem services, that's good. We'll go with that.
Nature-based solutions. So,
yes.
Yeah. You mentioned at the start you arrived at Castle Espie just before lockdown. Everyone was cooped up, and then after lockdown was lifted, did you experience a surge in visitor levels after?
Well, lockdown was eased rather than lifted, so there was limitations in numbers and things coming through. So we didn't see a surge, but then that's because we managed it in a way that there wouldn't be.
Very good.
But yeah, there's definitely a growing interest and understanding of nature and the importance of nature, even just for your mental health. And we've done some research with a mental health charity around being close to water and the positive effects that can have on you, just being around water, and people are drawn to water. So yeah, there's something interesting going on.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've grown up around the water all my life, and I probably was ignorant of, or I never even thought why did I enjoy it so much. And it was only when I maybe sat down and had a think why. And I suppose my last episode there, I was talking to a gentleman, John Gilmore, and he kind of said people like playing golf, you know, but I just like being at the water. There's something about it, and I think it's the fresh air and just the ability to switch off whatever you're doing, whether it's walking, taking photographs, if you're at the coast, and there's just something about it that, and the physical exercise as well, you're probably doing as well. So I think, yeah, you're right. People did appreciate that after lockdown, and the mental health side of it is also true, because everyone, I'd say, I don't know the stat or the figure, but most people are living in cities and towns now, surrounded by concrete. And I think people are maybe starting to, maybe I'm just following a certain type of people on social media, but people are starting to realize that it's not natural, and there is a connection to nature out there that is good for you. So yeah, that's interesting.
We have here for the next couple of months, we've installed poetry jukebox. So it's a curation of eco poetry, including Seamus Heaney's blackberry picking, and things shaped like a gramophone almost. And it's, you don't put money in it, you just pick whatever poem you want. And this is overlooking the loch. So we have a wonderful view over the loch from the Lime Kiln Observatory, and people can listen to this poetry and reconnect with nature and listen to it being articulated in words, because people have become very disconnected from it. So that's a nice project that we've just launched quite recently in connection with a company called Quotidian and Queen's University. So yeah, there's definitely a lack of connection, and with that probably lack of appreciation of the importance of nature. So we provide a place for people to come and reconnect with that.
And I suppose, Paul, as well, I imagine your site has volunteering opportunities for people if they did want to get involved. Is that right?
Yeah, we're reliant on volunteers. There's volunteering opportunities in probably every aspect of the business, from admissions to catering, working with the birds, working in reserve, working in grounds, just about anything that people want to give us a hand with.
Mm-hmm. And if you did want to get involved, how would you go about it? Would you go onto the website, or
go on the website? There's an info at link there that you can just click and express your interest.
And I suppose there's a feel good factor with volunteering as well. I did go through a phase of volunteering, but maybe when I went into the big bad world of work, it's fallen to the wayside. But there's definitely a feel good factor of volunteering.
There is. There's good. It's a good opportunity to develop a CV for some people as well.
Yeah, that's true. Especially aspiring environmental jobs, I think, got a bad rep. I remember when I finished my studies, it was almost like, so you're going to be a teacher then, there's not much out there. But I completely disagree with that strongly. And I think volunteering, if you are a student and you're just looking to build up the CV and get some relevant experience in an environmental or conservation, whatever it is, I think it's a really good way to do it. So there's loads of volunteering opportunities at Castle Espie, Paul. As well as that, I wanted to ask you about, it's summer holidays, inspiring the next generation of nature enthusiasts, conservationists. What role does Castle Espie play in that?
Well, yeah, that's a big part of what we do. When you said to me earlier that you used to come here as a kid, and that's when you get people interested, and that's where it starts. We have people who have worked here who came here as children themselves, and the hand feeding is one thing. If you hand feed a bird, that hand to big contact, and it arouses an interest in a child. And then there's a whole story behind those birds. We've got Hawaiian geese here, for example. You could find out more about them, and you realize that at one point there was only 20 left in the world. But the WWT, through a breeding program, have been able to reintroduce them. So yeah, bringing on the next generation is a big part of what we do, and maybe we played a role in your development, Sam.
Maybe. Funny, yeah, because I remember my granny taking me. It was kind of after school. What do we do with Sam and my brother, and bring them around? And I remember that you're talking about the beak. I remember it so vividly doing it. You get your wee packet. I don't know if you still do it in the paper bags.
We're not doing it at the moment, but yeah.
And then later on, I remember school trip. I went to Clinchy Primary, just up the road. And I remember my friend getting chased by a swan, and he's now scared of swans. So maybe it works both ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's great to see. And is there any particular activities ongoing?
Yeah, with loads of stuff going on at the moment. We have, well, the poetry jukebox is one that I mentioned to you, but we have an event activity called Drawn to Water. And it actually it's a play on words. We're featuring the work of Quentin Blake, who was the illustrator for the Roald Dahl books, amongst other things. And so there's a trail, Castle Espie trail, and you can see the world through the eyes of Quentin Blake. He said he had real trouble keeping birds out of his drawings. They seem to pop up all the time in his drawings. Right enough, if you look over Roald Dahl books, you'll see birds and frogs all over the place. So we have that at the moment, and we have a Quentin Blake exhibition coming in October. So we'll have some of his work on display in the gallery. Of course, we do have an art gallery here, so every month we feature a different, usually a local artist. The Quentin Blake one will be the exception to that. Usually the art will focus on nature in some way, not exclusively, but and the reason for that is Peter Scott, he was an artist. So yeah, we have pond dipping activities, we have craft activities for kids as well. So yeah, there's lots going on.
Brilliant, brilliant. Kind of, I wish I was a kid again, to be honest. And I didn't realize that about the art gallery as well. Local artists. It's
Yeah,
good to see it engaging with the local community, I suppose, which is
that's it.
definitely important for your site.
That's it. Yeah, no, it's a lovely little space. This is a modern building, as you know, but there is an old Victorian building that's been seamlessly joined onto it, and the art gallery is in the old building, and it's a really nice spot.
Very good.
We've got a garden here as well, a sensory garden. So there's a bit of beside our reed bed filtration system. So we've got wildflower meadow there and a traditional Irish apple orchard. So it's all old Irish apple varieties in there, which we harvest and turn into our own Castle Espie toffee apple ice cream. So you have to come along and try that.
Very good. I thought you were going to say cider.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Very good. Very good. That's good.
Yeah.
Good to see that going on.
Yeah.
So Paul, I wanted to ask you about what gets you going with the site. You've obviously got a horticultural background. What does the site mean to you? If you're turning up to work, I imagine you're very happy to turn up to Castle Espie, but just tell us a bit about what your work means to you.
It's quite meditative working here. Peaceful. It has its moments. You know, I've got a job to do. There are spreadsheets and there are targets and there's all sorts of things. But if something's nipping your head, you can just go out for a walk. And it is a magical place. Castle Espie, the term Castle Espie is a corruption of the Irish for the bishop's castle. So there is evidence of a fortified dwelling here, which maybe had some ecclesiastical connection. We've got Nendrum Monastery down the road, so I don't see why not. Mm-hmm. So I'm not the first to tune into a sort of spiritual element that there is here, because there is, and maybe it's geological. We've got this small outcrop of pink limestone, but there's something going on here that's very calming for the mind. So yeah, you could work in worse places. It is true. I enjoy very much all aspects of the role here, and helping out even with different stuff, doing whatever. That's a small team, so we have to.
Getting your hands dirty. That's
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's easy. That's fun, you know.
Yeah. I'd be the same. I do that all day.
Yeah.
Keep a spreadsheet away from me.
Yeah.
Very good. And you're so looking ahead for Castle Espie, is there any grand plans or anything like that, Paul?
We want to keep on going with our mission to engage people and to engage young people with nature, and that's what it's about. I think Peter Scott said to cause people to fall in love with it again, and that's what we do here, is we give them access and engage them in it. And our education programs are a big part of it. We've got schools coming through here all the time, and to continue that work here at Castle Espie, and hopefully continue to be valued in the Northern Ireland landscape as the only wetland centre in Northern Ireland.
Absolutely. No, that yeah, I think that's absolutely great, and I think it's so important to inspire that generation, and I think your site is the site to do it, and I think it's exciting to see what the future holds for it.
You had to come drop in.
Absolutely. You know
Yes.
what I was actually after, Paul? I was after a mascot for Coastal Catch-Ups, and a light bellied Brent goose I think would be perfect if you have
Okay.
any fluffy Brent geese.
I'll have a look. We've got a lot of fluffy animals in the shop, but
I
not
was
sure
thinking
if
that, yeah.
it might be.
Yeah, I need a wee. I think that's, if I was to get a mascot, that would be the one. So Paul, thanks very much for coming on to Coastal Catch-Ups. I would. I really enjoyed the insight into the site. Like I said, I'd been there as a kid, and I'd been there early last year, but it was really interesting to hear what goes into managing the site, and in particular, I enjoyed hearing about the mission of inspiring future generations, and I I think you're by hearing all the activities going on the site. I think you're smashing it, and I just wish you the best of luck and continue on with that mission. So thank you again. I hope you've enjoyed your time on the podcast.
I have. Thanks, Sam. Thanks for asking me.
So that chat with Paul Stewart, who's the centre manager at Castle Espie, I really enjoyed. For me, the takeaway was the whole idea of inspiring the next generation of kids, and he touched on all the activities going on with the Quentin Blake Gallery and the pond dipping and all the rest of it. So for me, it struck home because I remember going around that site as a young kid, and I remember vividly, like I just remember it so well. The other thing we chatted about was the volunteering opportunities, which if you were looking to get involved, you can on their website. So I didn't actually look at the website here for you. Yeah, so if you go on the website www.org.uk, there's a tab that says support us and then volunteer. If you go on to that tab, you can see there's a video about signing up, and there's another button about searching the volunteer opportunities. So check that out if you're interested. I think volunteering, like I said in the podcast, I've fallen out of touch with volunteering since I've started working, but it's something I do want to get back into. There is a feel-good factor to it. It gets you out and about. You meet new people, and you work towards a goal with a group of people, which is always really good, and you're giving back to the community. So, yeah, check that out if you're interested. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the chat with Paul. I certainly did, and I've arranged to go around to Castle Espie now and have a chat with him face to face, which would be good because I'm after a mascot for the podcast. I want to get a light-bellied Brent goose fluffy toy for the podcast. So that's my mission, and that's why I'm going to Castle Espie. So I'll maybe see you there. Make sure if you've enjoyed the episode to leave a review, or if you haven't enjoyed it, please leave a review as well. Please share it with anyone you may find who you think might find it interesting, and like it on whatever platform you're on. It would be really, really appreciated. So thank you. You can also subscribe to our emails to keep up to date with any episodes we release. I'm saying we, like there's another person involved, but it's just me at the minute. So yeah, but anyway, you can subscribe and keep up to date with episodes as they're released. Thanks again.
It's all about Marie and the coastal sea, aquatic life and everything in between. So sit on down and take a seat. Coastal catch-ups with the stampede.